prepare to be engaged and fascinated. I think this topic, we need to continue to build on this. I made a video called What Makes a Person Immoral Beyond the Law or Religion. Silent Bob left a comment, pretty short, but it really sums it up very well, I feel. Here's what he said, quote, "Morality is a social construct. It changes with time and from place to place. To me, paying your taxes and abiding by the law of the land where you live makes you moral. No religion or philosophy should be above the law," end quote. All right, so what the main takeaway from that for me is, ultimately, in theory, morality doesn't really exist. He's saying basically wherever you live, whatever the law is, just stay out of trouble with the law so that you don't, lose your freedom and get locked up or lose your life or something like that. And really that's all you have to worry about. That's what he's saying. He's saying because beyond that, morality doesn't really exist. He's saying that the crimes that you would commit in most countries, like murder, things like that, breaking into someone's home and stealing, and worse, things that would land you in jail or prison to begin with, just at least stay out of trouble with the law. And that's the end of the concept of morality. Just keep yourself out of trouble and out of prison. Keep your freedom. There you go. So, and this comment has been coming up here recently too, and it reinforces what I actually already believe when I asked the question, what is morality beyond the law and beyond religion? It's so interesting to me because I've heard atheists say, they say, well, Christians think that atheists can't be good and moral people without God, without religion, and I think to a degree it actually is true that if you don't have some kind of religious faith or background, that you can't really be a moral person because you have no real moral basis. And I'm not making this up. I made that video to prove the point. This is the sequel. The point was when I asked the free world, mainly non-religious people who are mainly people watching my channel. Most people are not religious that watch my channel. So that's part of the fascination. You got a religious guy talking about morality, but not trying to convert you to religion. I just want to have a discussion about it where we don't insult each other. We just challenge each other. But ultimately, I feel that way, that how does morality exist if you don't have, if you're forgetting about really the law, especially, but you're definitely forgetting about any kind of moral code related to religion. Because how can you be good? Because good doesn't exist. Good people and bad people don't exist, and we want to believe they do. We watch these comic book movies, Marvel, and we see Star Wars. It's very obvious there's good guys and there's bad guys. That's been ingrained in our brains. Good versus evil. Bad guys, good guys. But in reality, if you ask most people, what makes a person good? What makes a person bad? Most people are going to give some kind of answer like this. Well, it's to treat other people the way you want to be treated. The thing about that is, that's one of the things Jesus taught. So even that goes back to religion. You can't escape that. But even then, okay, so are there some people that are just bad people while there's other people that are good people, and it's easy to assume that we ourselves are the good people? What if you're a good person that does a bad thing? Can you still be a good person? Well, what if you're a good person who does 3 really bad things in your life? How many bad things can you do and still be a good person? And does it depend on what that thing is? See, that's why it gets really tricky on, well, then ultimately we're going back to the law. And I get what Bob is saying, is that ultimately, as long as you don't break the law to where you get caught and put away, that is the best sense that we can have of being a good person. But I say you can definitely be a bad person, as far as the rest of the way people would actually see you if they'd admit it, without ever breaking the law. Let me give you an example. I can do things that aren't breaking the law. I can, let's say in my office where I work, where you are. You're in there and you're really good at your job. You're very efficient. So basically the boss has to keep you there. Like, you're that valuable to the team. But the problem about you too, though, is you're very rude to people. And you're condescending when you speak to people. You make them feel bad about themselves. How did you not know that? Everybody knows what to do, talking down to people. And then you're talking bad about those people to other people. So basically you're gossiping behind other people. See, if you ask me, that's not a good person. A good person's not going to do that, but you're not breaking any law. So I think it's basically an impossible question to say how does morality exist beyond religion or the law? I think to a certain degree, yes, the law helps ground that a little bit to some degree. But you can still be a person that treats other people horribly without ever breaking the law. And everybody could see that person as a bad person. But even then, when I ask the question, if I were to ask the person, so tell me what makes a person good or bad? Well, they'd probably give me some generic answer like treat others the way you want to be treated. And then that goes back to, so you're saying that you can be a bad person without ever breaking the law, and yet, based on what Bob just said, well, ultimately just keeping the basic law of your land is what keeps you a moral person. So I think even now, as we're furthering the answer to this question, it still is convoluted. It still goes back to this concept that, as he's saying, morality is a social construct. As I've recently been talking about also on this channel, that I believe race and ethnicity, it's a social construct. I think more than anything, it's our cultural values and beliefs that are attached to our ethnicity and our upbringing that are largely coinciding with our race and ethnicity. But ultimately, I think morality is something that man interprets as his own, that truth and morality are ultimately relative. But when you've got certain nations, like America, that largely for the most part, the religion is Christianity, where compared to other places in the Middle East, it's Islam, you're going to have different versions of that truth, of that morality. Then you've got other countries that aren't religious, but they're still not breaking the law any more so than any other country maybe. It's not that they're better or worse people with or without the religion. That's why, and here's what inspired this question to begin with. Because of what I believe personally, and I'm not trying to get you to believe, because you should believe whatever you want to believe, and a confident person like me isn't trying to get other people to believe like him. A confident person believes what he believes, no matter who believes it, right? But for me, as far as what Christianity teaches, it teaches not some kind of lame thing like, oh, well, if you're a good person, you go to heaven. That is not what Christianity teaches. It teaches that none of us are good people to begin with. We were born in a nature that causes us to choose the selfish and wrong thing. And without law and without religion, we wouldn't even know those things, like being self-centered, like being a gossip, being selfish, things like that. Having more for yourself when this person over here doesn't have enough, and not giving to them, and things like that. So naturally, unless we're taught otherwise, that's what tends to happen to us. So I believe that none of us are good people. That's what Christianity teaches. None of us are good. We cannot be good. We were born in a way that it is our nature not to be. And that only by believing in Christ, the only perfect man who ever lived, because he was perfect and he sacrificed his life for us, that's the only way we can become like him. That's what Christianity teaches. And it's easy to say, well, Nick, that's all fairy tales. That's all made up, right? Okay, fair enough. But that's what I believe. And I think at least in my version of truth, my version is, I can know that I can never be a good person because being a good person doesn't exist aside from Christ. That's what I believe. Okay? But again, I'm not saying that to try to convince you to believe that way. And I know that I'm only providing bait for people to say that I'm an American idiot, that I believe in fairy tales, I'm ignorant, and I get those comments daily anyway, so that's nothing new. But ultimately, I think this is a very fascinating thing that we are discovering, that we're talking about. And that is, does morality exist without the law and without religion? And ultimately the answer is no. It's the system of faith that people believe in, just like currency, like in America. $1 is worth $1 because people believe it's worth $1. And what $1 is worth now in 2018 is not what it was when I was a 7-year-old boy in 1988. I recognize that. And like he's saying, even perceptions of morality change. Just like in America, President Obama's first term, he was against gay marriage being legal. By his second term, he changed his mind and he made it legal. So does that mean President Obama was, for people who are all about gay rights, are they saying that President Obama was an immoral person his first term, and then he suddenly became a good person by the second term? No, well, I think more than anything, it's a reflection that morality changes with culture and over time. But ultimately, morality is a social construct. And ultimately, we have to decide in our own hearts and minds what we believe is wrong or right. Do we believe that we are truly a good person? Or are we simply comparing ourselves to an axe murderer and compared to that person, oh yeah, I'm a good person? What are your thoughts? Let's keep this thing going. I love talking about this. Leave a comment right here.